the next update, which is...
Yeah, we're super excited to finally have a Nether update.
Ooh, the Nether update.
The Nether update. Ever since it was announced in 2019 and released in 2020, people have been thinking about the next logical update. The End update. The last time the End had a major update was in 2016, with the very controversial 1.9 The Combat update, which changed the combat system, introduced the gateways and outer end islands, with coarse fruits and end cities filled with shulkers. And that was the place where you could find the elytra. Plus these annoying cages that spawn on top of the end towers, which, fun fact, were first actually added to the Xbox 360 edition of Minecraft all the way back in 2013. But instead, over the next few years, we got the Caves and Cliffs update, which, to be fair, the community voted for it on the Minecraft feedback site, and the caves also were in need of an update, because they have been mostly neglected pretty much since the game's release. But still, the community was hopeful that after the Caves update, the End update will finally arrive. But it didn't. And it still isn't out to this day. So that begs the question of why? Why hasn't the most anticipated Minecraft update of all time been even announced? I think I know the answer. We all know why we don't go to the End nowadays. Because there's simply nothing to do. After you beat the enderdragon, get the shulker shells, and most importantly, the elytra, there is no reason to ever return. So the End update should obviously need to add new biomes, new mobs, new ores, and most importantly new mechanics, like the Nether update did to the Nether. But the biggest issue, and why I personally think that the End update still hasn't come out, is accessibility. Only 5% of people, at least on Bedrock Edition, even went to the End in survival. Because imagine, you start playing Minecraft Survival without any previous knowledge of Minecraft and without any external guidance. Would you even know that the End exists? Or even the Nether? No one could possibly figure out on its own that you have to place obsidian in a specific square shape and light it with fire. And Mojang obviously knew that this was an issue. That's why, in the Nether update, they added the abandoned Nether portals, which makes the player wonder what this is all about. With strange unfamiliar blocks and a squarish obsidian pattern, there usually is extra obsidian scattered around to complete the shape. Or you can also find it in a chest with... what is that? A flint and steel? Maybe if I complete the shape and light it up... It didn't work. Oh, maybe I have to replace the weird purplish obsidian and replace it with the normal one? There. Only now the player can enter the Nether. See? Even with Mojang's help, figuring out how to get to the Nether is still pretty hard. So how can you expect a player to figure out how to create a Nether portal, then enter the Nether? Then, inside the Nether, get to the Nether fortress to kill blazes, make blaze powder, and together with ender pearls craft ender eyes. Then get back to the overworld and throw them, then chase the eyes hundreds of blocks away just to dig into the ground to find a weird structure, and being fortunate enough to find the portal room and place the ender eyes in the portal frames to open it. Maybe at this point the player assumes that this is a portal to another dimension, and so without hesitation, he jumps in. I mean, what could go wrong? And here is our second major issue with the End update. But before we continue, only about 10% of you are actually subscribed, so please click the subscribe button. It's free and it helps a ton supporting the channel. Thanks. the Ender Dragon fight. No matter what you personally think about the Ender Dragon fight, you might have beaten it countless times, or only one time or maybe never. But for the new players, it isn't exactly easy. Especially if you enter the end dimension unprepared, without knowing what to expect. Because if you enter unprepared, you can't exit without beating the dragon or dying. And even if the player comes prepared, he still has to do it. He still needs to kill the Ender Dragon and also understand how to do it. If he wants to explore the outer islands and get the elytra, and since only a small percentage of players ends up defeating the dragon, Mojang probably thinks a major update for a part of the game that most players never touch simply isn't worth the commitment. And that's why they prefer to add cute but useless mobs to the game so that they can sell plushies, Legos, and other merch. And I mean, who's that dumb to be buying all this? Wait, but so how? How do we fix those problems? Let's start by making the concept of the end and how to get there more familiar. One thing that I have always found weird is that since Endermen are interdimensional beings, they can spawn in all dimensions. So why can't they spawn with blocks from those dimensions in other dimensions? For example, if an Enderman was able to spawn with an end stone in the overworld, the player could be intrigued seeing the Enderman holding a block they've never seen before, and by killing the Enderman and obtaining the new block, they would see the name of the block and be intrigued about it, and start thinking about its connections to the Enderman and the Ender Pearl. Next, we need to make the connection from the blazes to the end portal more obvious. I'd do this by making it so that a room that mimics the end portal room can spawn in the Nether Fortress, with again end stone blocks that represent the end portal frame and with item frames on them, with the possibility for some already made ender eyes to spawn in them. I know that a room that mimics the end portal room already exists in the Woodland Mansion, but since the Woodland Mansion is even rarer than the Stronghold, no one will ever see that. And next to our fake end portal, we could place some blaze powder and an ender pearl, so that the player makes the connection between the two to hopefully learn about crafting ender eyes. Let's also make it so that if you throw the ender eye in the nether, it leads you to this room. This may make the player wonder, what would happen if they threw the eye in the overworld? And if the player hopefully gets to the stronghold in the overworld this way, we should update that as well. I think that making it to be able to spawn more on the surface, like it was planned back in 2011, not only would it look more interesting, but it would also help the player to find it. But we could still leave the end portal room spawn only in the deeper levels of the stronghold. And somewhere over there, we should also put a painting representing the Ender Dragon fight so that the player at least partially knows what to expect by entering. And now, the next thing we need to fix is the Ender Dragon fight. Now, what I'm gonna say next is probably gonna be really controversial, but I think Mojang would never consider an end update without making the Ender Dragon fight optional. I myself don't like change as well, especially iconic features such as this one, but I think if Mojang wants to make an end update with more content added, then they can't make it accessible only to people who have defeated the Ender Dragon the old-fashioned way. Maybe they could make it so that if you want to get the elytra, you have to specifically defeat the Ender Dragon and bring the dragon egg to the end ship and placing it on a special block, granting you access to the elytra, sort of like you need keys to get loot in the trial chambers. And they could make it so that more Ender Dragon boss fights spawn around in the end. which could also be good for multiplayer servers, where everyone who wants to get the elytra needs to defeat the enderdragon on its own first for it to get the dragon egg, which would serve as the key for the elytra in the end city. So, in conclusion, Mojang doesn't want to update the end because they don't want to commit to updating a part of the game that most players have never even accessed. And they may also be scared to change some aspects of the core game in order to not upset the older players. But maybe I'm wrong, and in the future after Mojang stops doing the game drops, we might just get the end update we deserve.